I can still remember the exact moment I realized my manager was planning to steal our work. It wasn't some cinematic betrayal or a dramatic argument in a meeting room. It was a smile. Just a calm, empty smile. The kind that hides a knife behind the teeth. We'd spent 7 months building that product. 7 months of midnight calls with clients, endless prototype failures, and caffeine-fueled debugging marathons. It was our baby, my team's masterpiece. And yet, on that rainy Tuesday morning, I sat in a meeting where my manager, Ethan Cole, presented our project like it was his. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe he was just paraphrasing. Maybe he'd forgotten to mention us by name. But when I saw the slide deck, identical to the one I'd prepared the week before, right down to the mislabeled graph I hadn't corrected yet, I knew he'd stolen the entire thing. Ethan had that polished charm, the kind that made executives trust him instantly. His shirt was always crisp, his tone always mentoring, never commanding. He called me buddy in front of others as if we were equals. Behind closed doors, though, every conversation had a subtext. I own your results. When he finished the presentation, the VP of Product clapped him on the shoulder. Outstanding work, Ethan. This is exactly the kind of leadership we need. Leadership. I sat there smiling like an idiot while the blood roared in my ears. My team, 6 people who trusted me, had no idea what just happened. They were too busy fixing a deployment bug to see their future being quietly stolen slide by slide. After the meeting, Ethan leaned toward me as we walked down the hall. "Hey, great job supporting me in there," he said, low voice, all camaraderie. "You make me look good." That was the first cut. By Thursday, he'd scheduled a strategy sync with upper management without inviting me. The calendar invite appeared in my inbox only because someone accidentally forwarded the wrong thread. Subject line: presenting Ethan's vision for Q4. Ethan's vision? My work. That night, I sat at my desk long after everyone left, staring at our shared drive. He'd already renamed the main project folder. Cole Initiative. It felt like a punch to the gut. I opened the activity log, timestamps of when he'd accessed files, exported documents, and downloaded versions that only I and my dev lead should have had. He'd been preparing this for weeks. Every time he'd smiled in my direction, he'd been quietly setting the trap. I wanted to confront him right then, march into his office and tear down the facade. But the rational part of me, the side that had watched politics chew up better people, told me to wait. You don't fight power head-on, you dismantle it in silence. So I played the part, the obedient subordinate, the yes, absolutely, Ethan guy. The next few weeks were theater. He started dropping little comments in front of executives. My team's been working hard. I've been pushing this vision since last quarter, carefully erasing my fingerprints from our success. I kept notes, dates, times, verbatim quotes. Every time he forgot to CC me on client updates, I archived the email chain. Every time he borrowed one of my reports, I copied the version history. My dev lead, Marcus, noticed first. "Hey man," he said one night, leaning on my cubicle wall, "why is Ethan presenting our metrics as his own? The new deck he sent us looks familiar." I met his eyes and lied. "Don't worry about it yet." But inside, I was already worrying. I'd seen people like Ethan before, climbers who smiled upward and stomped downward. They always left wreckage behind, and this time, the wreckage would be us. Then came the meeting that changed everything. Friday morning, the air in the conference room felt stale, heavy with anticipation. Ethan had gathered the entire team for a performance discussion. He stood there in his usual light gray suit, hands clasped like a preacher, smile polished to perfection. "Listen, folks," he began, "we've had some inconsistencies with client communication. Some deliverables were delayed. The higher-ups are concerned about accountability." Marcus frowned. "We met every deadline. You approved the timelines yourself." Ethan nodded sympathetically. I know. But from their perspective, The structure needs improvement, which is why, moving forward, I'll be taking a more direct role in project leadership. It landed like a grenade. He'd just publicly demoted me. Without saying the word, the team went silent. Ethan looked right at me as he said it, that same gentle tone like he was doing me a favor. I'm sure you understand, right? Less pressure on you? You've earned a break. That was the second cut. After the meeting, I sat in the parking lot, engine off, rain drumming on the windshield. I thought about all the weekends I'd worked, all the nights I'd covered for his mistakes, all the times I defended him to the team because I believed loyalty mattered. Loyalty meant nothing to him. He was already erasing me. That night, I didn't sleep. I opened my laptop and started pulling copies of everything. Code repositories, documentation, client feedback forms, the full record of what we had built. Evidence that this project had always been ours. When I finished, I opened a blank file and typed 4 words at the top. Phase 1. Let him win. If Ethan wanted to play games, I'd play better. He thought I was the loyal subordinate. He had no idea he'd just taught me how to disappear and take everything that mattered with me. I didn't start part 2 with fireworks. I started with a calendar. For 2 weeks, I let Ethan tighten the leash while I moved every piece into place. He announced process changes in Slack, took over client stand-ups, and inserted himself into every email thread I started. He spoke in that careful managerial tone about protecting the narrative. Translation: rewrite history with his name at the top. So I gave him a narrative to protect. I stopped pushing back. I stopped correcting him in meetings. I practiced being forgettable. And while I faded, I documented everything. Screenshots with timestamps, original Figma links with version history, Git commits tied to our team accounts, even the whiteboard photos we'd taken after late-night design sprints. I exported them with XF data, intact, and saved the originals to an external drive at home. I started using an app that prints PDFs with an embedded hash at the moment of export. Belt and suspenders. Marcus was the only one I let in, and even then only halfway. Just keep committing from your account, I told him. Don't merge from Ethan's branch unless he requests it in writing. He stared at me. In writing? Slack is writing. Ethan began rewriting the deck again, cutting my slides about risk controls and adding more vision. He removed the bug tracking slide entirely, too messy for his story, and replaced it with a roadmap we hadn't agreed on. When I asked to review before the executive sync, he smiled. No need. Trust me. That night I stayed late, staring at the deck in the shared folder. He'd locked it, of course. So I opened the activity log and watched his cursor travel through our work like a tourist taking souvenirs. I didn't try to stop him. I uploaded a new document to the same folder. Q4 handoff, notes, draft. Inside were exactly 3 things. 1, a neutral description of responsibilities to date. 2, a clean list of owners for each deliverable with links to source. And 3, a footnote, prepared by request for executive visibility. I set it to view only and left the audit trail open like a runway. Monday, I accidentally sent a status recap to our VP before Ethan's meeting. Short, factual, no opinions, just links to repositories, and the client-approved scope with my team's names next to each artifact. I followed with a second email to Ethan alone. As discussed, here are the raw materials for your deck. Cut, paste, attach. I wanted him to use them. I wanted the artifacts folded into his story so the chain would be airtight later. He called me that afternoon with fake warmth. Appreciate the support, buddy. Of course, I said. My job is to make you look good. I made sure to say it on a recorded line. Company policy, always on. Meanwhile, I started mapping the exit, not the dramatic kind, the legal kind. The employee handbook forbade taking proprietary code and soliciting clients' pre-termination. Fine, I wasn't going to steal a single line of code. What I had was relationships and the original idea we'd validated with the clients under my leadership. I read our contracts at the public library to avoid metadata flags. Most clients had standard termination for convenience clauses with 30 days notice. More importantly, the success criteria section referenced our outcomes, not our internal org chart. On Wednesday night, I met with our client sponsor from the biggest account. Coffee, neutral ground, personal device off. I didn't pitch him. I didn't hint. I just listened while he vented about delays caused by management layers. When he asked if the team was okay, I answered honestly, they're tired of politics. He nodded like a man who understood exactly what that meant. Back at the office, Ethan turned the heat up. He pulled me into a glass room and closed the door. Look, there's concern about your leadership presence, he said. From who? From leadership, he smiled. It's not personal. His eyes crossed the hallway toward the VP's office. Friday's deck is critical. It needs to tell a single story. It will, I said. I had already scheduled 3 emails to go out at 9:03 a.m. Friday, 1 to legal with a readout of ownership of artifacts, 1 to finance confirming my team's billable utilization, and 1 to HR requesting a copy of my performance reviews. They would all timestamp the truth without a single accusatory word, nothing to debate, nothing to spin. Thursday night, I opened a fresh notebook and wrote down a list of names. Not clients, people. The quiet data analyst who had saved us twice and never got credit. The junior engineer who fixed the memory leak at 2 a.m. and got told to be more visible. The QA lead who kept our ship dates honest and got left off the email to the VP. I didn't promise them anything yet. I just noted what each of them needed if the floor fell out. Salary, stability, space to work without drama. Ethan rehearsed his big show in the main conference room at 6 p.m., lights off, door cracked. I stood outside listening to his voice roll through the bullet points we wrote. He'd kept my mislabeled graph, corrected now, and he'd added a slide titled Coal Methodology. I almost laughed. He'd named our work after himself. Before I left, I walked past the room. He saw me and lifted a hand. Big day tomorrow. Huge, I said. Anything you need? Actually, he said, can you send me the client feedback summary, the one with quotes? Already in your inbox, I said. I'd sent 2 versions, one clean, one with the source file ID visible in the footer, the kind that makes legal smile when they're asked who did what. At home, I packed a small bag, keyboard, personal laptop, 2 paper notebooks, nothing else. I wrote a single-page letter, not for HR, for myself, a list of lines I refused to cross on the way out. No stolen code, no angry email blasts, no speeches. I wanted the story to tell itself. Friday morning, 8:57 a.m., the executive team filed into the main room. Ethan took the head of the table. I sat 2 seats to the left, quiet, a notebook open, pen uncapped. He started strong. Vision, market, momentum. He used my language with his cadence, a karaoke version of leadership. Heads nodded. He advanced the slides and the room leaned forward. At 9:03 a.m., my scheduled emails sent themselves. A minute later, the VP glanced at his phone, then at the deck, then at Ethan. He didn't interrupt. He didn't have to. The room had already seen the audit trail. Owners, artifacts, dates. Ethan kept going, unaware that the ground under his story had shifted half an inch. When he said, "Since I took over client communication," I watched the VP's eyebrow go up. He was too professional to call it out then, but he wasn't going to forget. Ethan closed with a flourish about my framework, and the applause was polite, not the same as last time. "Any questions?" he asked. "Just one," the VP said lightly. "Can you send me the raw client quotes after this?" "Of course," Ethan said, smiling. He'd already sent them, the version with the source file ID in the footer. I'd seen the red receipt. The meeting ended with handshakes and smiles. Ethan basked in it, the way men do when they think the story is settled. He clapped me on the shoulder. "Couldn't have done this without you." "I know," I said. Back at my desk, I opened a blank email to myself and wrote the subject line, Phase 2 complete. The body was just a checklist with every box ticked, documentation preserved, relationships intact, audience seated with facts, legal boundaries mapped. Marcus pinged me. "You good?" I typed back. "Almost." At 5:42 p.m., Ethan sent a company-wide message celebrating our momentum under new leadership. The thread filled with clapping emojis. I replied with a single line, "Proud of the team." No heat, no hint. Then I opened a private calendar for the following week. One 30-minute block for HR, another with legal, a third marked only with an address and a single word, keys. I closed the laptop and let the office noise recede into a low, neutral hum. Ethan had what he wanted, my silence, his spotlight. The story was his now, which was perfect. Because stories don't survive on stage time. They survive on evidence, and I had quietly loaded the evidence into the walls. Ethan's victory lap lasted exactly 8 days. He strutted through the office like a man whose reflection finally looked back the way he wanted. Confident, admired, untouchable. People laughed louder at his jokes. HR congratulated him for stabilizing morale. The VP even mentioned his name in the Monday all hands, and I played my part, the good soldier still smiling. Every "great job, boss" I gave him was another shovelful of dirt on his own grave. By that point, my plan had been drafted, revised, and printed twice. One copy locked in my desk, one folded in the pocket of my jacket. Phase 3, execute, sign, vanish. I started with small moves, quiet ones. Tuesday morning, I sent a simple calendar invite to HR. Resignation logistics inquiry. No subject, no context. They assume burnout. That word floated around my record enough times to make it believable. Then I called a friend, an old contact from a client we'd landed 6 months earlier. We'd kept in touch over beers, talking about industry trends and the nonsense of corporate politics. He'd once said, half joking, "If you ever go solo, call me first." So I did. We met at a diner near the freeway, a place so loud no one could eavesdrop. He listened as I laid out the story, stripped of drama, just facts. Ethan, the stolen credit, the meetings, the reshuffle. He didn't even blink. "If you build your own shop," he said, "we'd sign in a heartbeat. You built the thing. Everyone knows it." That was the first client secured. Quietly, legally. By Thursday, I had 2 more. Small accounts, but loyal. I didn't pitch. I didn't promise. I simply said, "If I were to leave, would you still want to work with me?" Every answer was some variation of "absolutely." The office by then had shifted around Ethan's new power. He'd started holding morning stand-ups at 8:30, same hour we used to start coding. He'd moved into my corner seat and replaced the team Slack icon with his initials. "Brand consistency," he said. Marcus stopped talking during meetings altogether. Others followed. The silence in our group chat spoke louder than any complaint. That Friday, the company hosted a momentum lunch. Sandwiches, fake smiles, Ethan toasting to new leadership energy. I watched him raise his glass and saw the faint reflection of the man he used to pretend to be. Collaborative, humble. Now he didn't bother. When he clinked his cup against mine, he said quietly, "See? We're killing it. Stay close, man. Big things coming." I smiled back. "I know. They're closer than you think." That night, I stayed late again. Not to work, to erase myself. I logged into the internal systems and transferred ownership of every team document to their respective creators. Commit histories intact, names visible. The evidence was sealed. My fingerprints were everywhere and nowhere at once. Then I wrote my resignation letter. 2 paragraphs, calm, professional, dated for Monday morning. I didn't print it. I wanted to hand it in while he was mid-sentence. Timing mattered. When I got home, I slept for the first time in weeks. No anxiety, no guilt, just the quiet knowledge that the avalanche had already started, and all I had to do was step aside. Monday, 9:45 a.m. Ethan called for an emergency alignment. The executives were in the room. Apparently, a client had requested an update on deliverables. He was glowing. He loved the spotlight, the showmanship, the illusion of command. He started the presentation, polished and confident, the kind of man who believed he'd already won the future. Halfway through, the VP interrupted, "Ethan, could you clarify something about the original implementation timeline? These figures don't match the ones from last quarter." Ethan froze for just a second. "That must be an old version," he said. "I'll have my team send the updated one." The VP nodded, unimpressed. "Make sure you CC my name. He probably has it." Ethan hesitated. "Actually, I think he's off today." I wasn't. I walked in right then, letter in hand. The room turned. "Sorry," I said casually. "Traffic." I set the envelope on the table and sat down next to Ethan. His eyes flicked to the paper like it was a bomb. "Everything okay?" he asked. I smiled, that calm, polite smile he'd used on me for months. "Perfect, actually. I just came to drop something off." He didn't touch the envelope. The VP looked between us. "Should we—" "It's fine," I said. "Just paperwork. Nothing urgent." Ethan cleared his throat, trying to regain control. "Right. Let's continue." But his voice trembled. I sat through the rest of his presentation without taking notes. When it ended, I stood, shook hands with everyone, and said, "It's been an honor working here." Ethan blinked. "Wait, what?" "I'm resigning. Effective immediately. HR's looped in?" The room fell quiet. The VP frowned. "You're serious?" "Completely." Ethan tried to laugh it off. "Come on, man. You can't just—" "I can," I said. "And I am." I walked out before he could say another word. By noon, my ID badge was disabled, my inbox gone. But my phone buzzed with messages from half the clients we'd worked with. "We heard you left. Where are you going next? If you start something, we'll follow." I didn't reply yet. I wasn't ready to announce anything, not until the ink was dry. At 2 p.m., Marcus called. "So it's happening?" "It's done," I said. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. "What do we do now?" "You choose," I said. "Stay if you want. But if you're tired of being erased, give me a week." By 6 p.m., 4 team members had sent me quiet texts. "I'm in." "Tell me when." "About damn time." Ethan must have found out by sunset. My phone lit up with his name. 5 missed calls. Then one message. "What the hell are you doing? You're walking away from everything we built. We can fix this. Call me." I didn't answer. There was nothing to fix. By the next morning, LinkedIn buzzed with updates. My profile now read Founder, Gray Line Systems. The logo was minimal, the website bare bones but live. I'd filed the LLC 3 weeks earlier, registered the domain 2 days after his first strategy sync. When Marcus arrived at my new co-working space that afternoon, he dropped a box of cables on the floor and grinned. "So what's next, boss?" "Now," I said, "we start clean. No hierarchy, no parasites. We got to work." The first client signed within 3 days. The second followed a week later. We weren't rich, but we were free. The kind of free that makes coffee taste different. Ethan's emails turned from furious to pleading to silent, then nothing. Until one morning, 3 months later, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number, short voicemail. "You ruined me. Hope it was worth it." I deleted it without listening twice. He thought I'd quit out of anger. He never realized it was precision. He'd taken the stage, the credit, the spotlight, and I'd taken everything else. He wanted my work. I took the clients. He wanted control. I took freedom. And by the time he understood what happened, there was nothing left to steal. Ethan vanished from my radar for almost 4 months. Not because I avoided him, but because ghosts can't haunt people who've already moved on. By the time winter rolled around, Gray Line Systems had an office, a pulse, and a rhythm. Our desks were mismatched, our server room was a repurposed closet, and the air conditioner made a noise like dying metal every afternoon. But it was ours. We'd gone from 7-hour meetings to 7-minute stand-ups, from begging for approvals to building whatever we damn well wanted. Clients came to us because we delivered. Fast, transparent, no nonsense. And word spread. The first real moment it hit me was at a tech expo in Austin. We weren't even presenting, just networking, showing a prototype. Halfway through the day, a VP from one of our old corporate clients stopped by, shook my hand, and said, "Is it so you're the reason Ethan Cole's department fell apart?" He smiled like it was a compliment, and maybe it was. A week later, Marcus walked into the office with a newspaper, one of those internal industry digests full of layoffs and promotions. He dropped it on my desk, open to a small headline at the bottom. Cole departs Vertex Solutions after project audit. No article, no details, just that one line. He didn't get fired publicly, they never do, but someone inside must have connected the dots. Because here's the thing, when you lie for long enough, your own evidence turns against you. All those version histories, those Cole methodology slides, those bragging emails to executives, they'd built him up like scaffolding. And when the foundation cracked, the whole structure caved in on him. It wasn't revenge, it was gravity. Grayline started picking up clients faster than we could hire. We weren't the biggest, but we were the ones people trusted. Every project was another quiet declaration that you could build something ethical, something without the rot. I never posted about Ethan, never told anyone the full story. I didn't have to. The industry did it for me. Rumors filled the silence like water seeping into cracks. Cole's project got audited. Apparently none of the data matched the reports. Did you hear his lead developer walked out and took half the team? Each version less accurate, but all headed in the same direction, downward. The first email from him came months later. Subject line, "You won." Just 2 words in the body. "Congratulations, I guess." I read it once and archived it. He wanted a reaction, anger, guilt, anything to prove I still cared. But I didn't. That's the part no one tells you about revenge. Once you've moved past it, it stops being revenge. It becomes release. I didn't destroy him. He destroyed himself. I just gave him the mirror. 6 months later, Grayline signed a multi-year contract with a global firm. One of the same accounts Ethan used to brag about in meetings. When the documents came through, I noticed the contact name on the signature line. Regional Director C. Patel, Ethan's old VP. He'd recommended us personally. When we got the confirmation email, Marcus laughed. "Circle's complete," he said. "Not yet," I replied. "We're just getting started." Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that first meeting, the one where Ethan presented our work as his own, the fake smile, the applause, the way I sat there swallowing every ounce of rage because I didn't want to make a scene. If I could go back, I wouldn't change that moment. It taught me patience, it taught me silence. And silence, when you learn to use it right, is the loudest weapon in any room. I learned that the world doesn't reward outrage. It rewards control. Ethan wanted recognition. I wanted results. He built his empire out of credit. I built mine out of proof. Last week, Marcus forwarded me a post from LinkedIn. Ethan had rebranded himself as an independent consultant, specializing in leadership turnarounds. No company name, no team. Just him, talking to a camera in his living room about authentic management. The comments were full of strangers cheering him on. But I saw the look in his eyes, that flicker you can't fake when you know the world has already moved on without you. It wasn't anger, it was emptiness. And for the first time, I didn't feel satisfaction, just closure. Yesterday, I walked past our conference room, now filled with light, chatter, and the kind of energy that only exists in places built out of respect, not fear. Marcus was explaining a new client rollout to the interns. Someone had ordered too much pizza. The air smelled like basil and burnt cheese and caffeine. I stood there for a second, watching the reflection of my team on the glass. I didn't see employees. I saw survivors. People who refused to let someone else write their story. Maybe that's what freedom really is. Not quitting out of anger, not burning bridges, just quietly walking across your own. As I turned off the office lights that night, I looked at the logo on the door. Gray Line Systems. It still made me smile. Not because it represented a company, but because it represented proof that the best revenge isn't taking someone down. It's building something they could never imagine without you. And as for Ethan Cole, he once told me, in business, you have to own the narrative. He was right. He just never realized I'd already written the ending.